Welcome back to the Mindset Mastery podcast. This podcast was started with the sole intention of bringing on board guests who are doing incredibly well in the trading and investing industry. So I could bring them on board and ask them probing questions and extract insights on their routines, their processes, their mindset. So I can pass those on to you guys and girls out there, and you can take those things and implement them into your own trading and investing game to help you excel and go to the next level. Now, there's a lot of misinformation in this industry, so I wanted to bring on board the right guests and ask them the right questions to get that information, the right information that you need to succeed into your hands. So I hope you enjoy this particular interview. And if you did, make sure you subscribe and turn that notification bell on. Send it to other people in your network that you know will get a lot of value from this. And be sure to check out the description where I have more information on the guest and more information on my mindset trading services to help you guys go to the next level. Welcome back to the Trading Mindset Mastery podcast. Today I've got a great friend and a fellow trader, Courtney Charles, on the podcast. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing a lot of things, but one thing that I think Courtney is going to share an immense amount of value on is pretty much about guiding life principles and philosophy. I think if you can identify a great philosophy to live by, it has a very positive and profound effect on your trading. So I wanted to introduce Courtney. Welcome to the podcast, Courtney. If you would love to spend some time giving the audience a bit of an introduction about yourself, that would be an incredible place to start.
Yeah, cool. Hey, Pat, thanks for having me on. So yeah, where do I start? I guess I'll start with how I actually got into trading. So first time I came across trading was way back in 2012, actually. I went to a Rich Dad seminar, which I thought was about real estate, but it was actually about trading. And they were upselling a course, which I bought. That was a three-day course over the weekend. So I went with a friend and I thoroughly enjoyed it, but I just didn't realize at the time that you could actually trade for a living. I probably had some self-limiting beliefs at that point. So I didn't pursue it past then. So from 2012, I was in the corporate world and I was doing recruitment at the time. I was a mortgage advisor before, hence my interest in investing and personal finance. And I went into recruitment, and that opened a door for me to go and live and work in Dubai. So from 2014 to sort of towards the end of 2017, I was in Dubai working for IBM, actually. As a recruitment project manager. But I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy the corporate world. But I think what was great about my 20s is I had a lot of different career experiences, and none of them really hit the nail on the head for me. I was never kind of invigorated by any of them. I kind of figured out pretty early that the ultimate goal would be to work for myself, but I just didn't really know what that would be, how that would look. The constant though was I was always interested in personal finance. So, real estate is probably the one that everyone can relate to. And it was actually in 2017 when I was transitioning back to UK. My friends introduced me to cryptocurrency. And he says, dude, take a look at this. I think you'll be really interested in it. And I ordered a few books, as I always do. I started reading about crypto, and then I wanted to understand how to invest. So I brought up the charts on TradingView, and then what happened is all the memories from 2012 came flooding back, and I was like, oh, the charts. I brought out my old notes from that 3-day weekend, and I was like, I did a bit more research, and then I realized, well, actually, hold on, this is actually a viable career path now. So I didn't actually figure out that forex, foreign exchange trading, was kind of the main way that people were making really good money and careers of it until maybe 6 months after that. But once I clocked onto that, and then I had the belief by seeing other people do it, that was it for me. Trading became my kind of, my love and my lease of life. And that's what was the kind of the door to get me out of the corporate world and actually really enjoy the gift of work. So yeah.
Excellent. So you started up with the trading, and give us a little bit more of an insight into sort of how you started up, what were the processes early on, what were the routines, and how you sort of got from starting to trading to where you are now. Are there any key lessons or key takeaways that you could really pass on in terms of what you'd recommend to do and maybe what you would not recommend to do in those early stages?
The first thing I'd recommend is you have to not indoctrinate yourself, you really have to kind of just throw yourself in and learn as much as possible. What I mean by that is read books, scroll websites, just look at forums, because you don't know what you don't know. So you have to kind of, it's like going to a buffet, you have to kind of experience all these different things first to kind of indoctrinate yourself into the world of trading, because it's not a straightforward thing. And also you need kind of, because it's such a wide arena and there's so many different ways to trade, you have to kind of experience all these different things, all these different strategies, Fibonacci, Elliott wave, support and resistance. You have to familiarize yourself with those terms. And I think the best way to do that is just by reading widely and exploring the world of trading in as many different ways as possible. There is no rush, essentially. You just want to kind of immerse yourself in the world at first. And I think going in from the beginning with a mindset of being patient, that's one of the best things that I think people can do, because there's so much eagerness to just make money straight away, and it's not really like that.
Okay, so you're going with the mindset of being open, teachable, and patient. You learn a lot of different things there. And then do you believe there comes a point where now that you know all these things, you naturally start to niche down, you naturally start to become and focus on one or two things and then start trading those things? How does the development from learning widely then turn into trading a successful strategy or trading a strategy successfully? What does that look like for you, in your opinion?
That's a really good question. So I think there's a lot of hype around communities and following one strategy. And it has its place when you're learning, because it gives you a focus at the beginning. You can learn from someone who is experienced, and it can kind of give you the main information of what you need to know to be able to trade, like things like risk management. That's a really big one. A lot of people don't know how important that is when they start off, but if you're following someone who's been in the market, you'll pretty much learn that straight away. But there then comes a stage where you cannot just accept that person's perspective on the market, because that's the way they see it. Their brain is wired differently to yours, inevitably. So you want to understand how your brain and what your genuine perspective is on the market, not through someone else's lenses. And I think the only way to do that is you've almost got to start wide, become narrow, and then go wide again. Because once you have that base level understanding, you have a foundation for the knowledge to stick to. So when you then go back out and explore again, a lot of the things that may not have made sense at the beginning will make sense. And that's when you can really start to niche down and say, do you know what, I really like that. I don't like that way of doing things. And then you know yourself a little bit more in the market after, say, 2 years of that initial apprenticeship or that experience. And then you can really start to understand, this is what I like to do in the market. This really fits with how I like to trade and my personality. Because one of my favorite authors, Van Tharp, he talks about the fact that, you trade your beliefs. I think we've spoken about this before. You trade your beliefs in the market. And it is a very complex arena. There's definitely not one way to skin a cat here. It's an infinite world of possibilities. So, if you go in with that mindset, it should give you a lot of freedom in the market to explore and experiment.
Powerful answer, Courtney. Okay, now it's pretty obvious you're well read, and I know we've discussed this in our numerous calls, our love for reading and our love for philosophy. I'd love to hear what has been the biggest takeaways for you from your readings, readings on faith, reading on philosophy, reading on personal development. What are sort of the principles you've extracted from that? And I guess to take that question one step further, how have you then taken those principles and created guiding principles which are helping you in the markets? Love to hear your sort of thoughts on your learnings, taking principles from those learnings, and then finally applying those principles to your trading to help you trade congruently and successfully.
Yeah, really good question. So yeah, I do read a lot of philosophy. My guiding principle in my life is Christianity. That's my faith. So that's at the center of my life. And I do lean on a lot of the things that I read, philosophy and the Bible and so on. And I think the main things I get from those readings and those teachings is purpose. I think when you're operating from a higher purpose, and you almost operate outside yourself. So well, I know I'm doing things for a lot bigger reasons than maybe I would have done them before I started reading those type of texts and before I became a Christian. It allows me to operate from a deeper place when I know I'm operating from a purpose-driven place.
Mm-hmm.
I also always seek wisdom. I think that's a big thing in philosophy and Christianity, is to always seek wisdom. So that means by default you have to have humility, right? To always be seeking wisdom and to be learning from everyone and everything all the time means you have to have the humility, like Socrates did, to know that you know nothing. And that it sounds paradoxical, but that makes you clever. When you know nothing and you want to know more, then invariably you're kind of just, you're always on the lookout for new information and how to, and it's not just learning through text, it's learning through experiences and learning through conversations, and you can learn from anyone. So that's another big thing, to always be a student, especially from a faith point of view. I do believe that we all have unlimited potential. Like if you was to say to someone, what's your potential? I'm pretty sure that it's unknown. And I think that's a really exciting concept, to know that you can always get better. So if you can always get better, then I feel like it's my duty to realize that potential, at least try and realize that potential. So that's something that drives me every day. It's like, okay, if I'm not tapping into it, let me at least strive to do that. And I think the last thing is, I'm always here. I'm here to help others. So whatever gifts I've been given, it is my duty to operate within those gifts. Mm-hmm. But the knock-on effect of that is to be able to help other people with those gifts. So for me, trading is just it's a way for me to probably use those funds to then help other people who are less fortunate, and show people what is actually possible when you put your mind to it and when you actually start operating within those gifts. So I think those are the guiding principles, and they definitely do transfer over into my trading. So when I wake up every day, it sounds a bit cheesy and a bit cliche, but I do genuinely believe that every day we get given is a gift. Mm-hmm. There are people out there, I've been to countries, and there are people out there who they would love to be in my circumstances, mm-hmm. or your circumstances. They would love to even just be healthy. And the fact that I do wake up healthy every day, and I wake up with an opportunity to move forward every day, is a gift in itself. Mm-hmm. I think we also have a tendency to to think that we have a lot of time, but we don't necessarily have a lot of time because we don't know when our time is up. So when I operate in a mindset where I know I'm running out of time, and I don't want that to sound morbid, but I just know that I'm not always going to have time to do these things that I'm doing. So it kind of makes me chase and work harder and make the most of the time that I have. That doesn't mean I'm always working that every hour that God sends me. It might mean that I'm making sure that I socialize and talk to friends and so on. So I'll build that. The great thing around trading is that I can build those things into my day, which is fun. So I hope that answers your question.
100%, man. Very, very powerful. Now, there's one thing in there I want to pick apart and get some more insights from you from. You mentioned purpose.
I found my purpose through faith, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of, when I was working in the corporate world, I knew that this wasn't it. I had a larger purpose, and then it was finding out what my strengths were. That led me to trading, and then I just realised that trading was a great way to make money, but the money wasn't for me to sit on a pile of cash, like, and just kind of keep it all to myself. That would be to then, I guess, use it for philanthropic purposes and help other people. That was my purpose. But then also what helps me with trading is that I just genuinely love the process. So I think one piece of advice that I can give to traders who are at the beginning of their journey is to find a way to enjoy the process. And what I've found from reading around market wizards and so on is that they tend to not really value the money as much as they do the enjoyment of trading and the enjoyment of the progression of getting good at this activity. So I think if you can fall in love with the process, fall in love with the process in inverted commas, if you can enjoy the process of trading, you're a lot more likely to succeed and to persevere, and you'll start operating from a very different place of, oh, it's all about the money. Because a lot of people want to trade because you can make a lot of money, but I'd say that from what I've seen, the people that succeed are the ones that it means trading means something different to them than just making money. That's definitely one thing that I see in common with the top traders or the traders who end up making it, so to speak. Operating from that place of enjoyment.
Great. Now, you mentioned a deeper purpose. Let's go back into that. You're doing some work, would you call it philanthropic work now? Some charity work now?
So I am a trustee of a charity called PUSH, which stands for Persevere Until Something Happens. So we work with 13 to 18-year-olds all over the world. And our goal is to help them to understand that they have gifts and they can pretty much do anything that they put their mind to. So anything that they work hard at, anything that they are committed to and are willing to put the work in, they can achieve. But what we try and teach them is we try and teach them the intangible things that you don't learn in school, basically the important stuff. We're not trying to help them to memorize facts. We're teaching them about, like emotional intelligence and the things that you're going to need to know and cultivate to be able to make it in your chosen field. So that's the kind of things that we teach them. We also teach them personal finance as well, because one thing I've noticed in life is that a lot of problems stem from people not having a hold on money and personal finance. So if you could learn those things when you're a teenager, then I think it sets you up well. So that is something that's quite close to my heart. I think it's just because I wish I'd had some sort of guidance from older folks when I was younger, and I don't just mean like learning the standard academic way in school and college and university. I think there are a lot of more effective ways to learn than just book learning.
And can we dive into one thing from each of those areas? One thing on emotional intelligence that you would pass on to these individuals, and one thing on personal finance that you pass on to these individuals?
Emotional intelligence is massive in trading. So self-awareness in trading, like knowing yourself. And I think that, we talk about philosophy a lot. Philosophy talks about knowing yourself inside out. And once you do that, like, you get to know your personality a lot more in trading. So I'd say to people that if you could get to know your strengths and weaknesses a lot more, you'd be surprised how much that actually helps you in the market. It's helped me no end. And when I say learn strengths and weaknesses, I don't mean like in a fluffy sense. I mean like do personality tests, like the Myers-Briggs test. I was listening to Ray Dalio Principles. I listened to it again earlier this year just to refresh my mind on what he was saying. And he I don't know if he still does it, but at his hedge fund, he went through a phase. I don't know if he still does it, like I said, but he makes every employee take a Myers-Briggs test.
Yep.
Which helps you identify your personality traits. And then that helps them work effectively together. So stuff like that will definitely, I redid it earlier this year, or I think it was last year. And it was surprising how much that helped me then refine my strategy and understand why certain things resonate with me in the market. And moving on to the personal finance side of things is trading earns you an income, but it doesn't teach you to be good with money. So personal finance is very important to understand how to use the income that you can make from trading to then actually invest it, because trading and investing aren't the same thing. So yeah, it's, you can earn all the money in the world, but if you don't know how to keep it, then it's pretty much no good to you. And those things will go hand in hand. Yeah.
Powerful stuff, Courtney. I want to push you a little bit more on that personal finance thing. What would be a practical application or practical piece of advice you can give to people listening to help them keep and hold on to the money they make? Because I couldn't agree more with what you said. Is it as simple as, savings, stashing a percentage of your income into savings? Is it going down the investment route? What is it that you would advise?
Seek wisdom. So that goes back to one of my earliest principles that I said, is that seek wisdom. So it sounds like the most simple thing, but go pick up some personal finance books. I think Les Brown said if you were to read 8 books on any subject, you'd be like in the top 10% of people that know about that subject as a kind of specialist, which is crazy. 8 books is nothing. So if you want to know about personal finance, you could just go on Amazon and literally type in personal finance and read 5 books, and you will have some good idea of how to invest your money within the country that you're in. It's different for every country, right? So, if you're living in Australia, you probably don't want to be buying 10 personal finance books from someone who's in the States, because they're going to be talking about 401ks and all that kind of stuff. So that, there is that little bit of a nuance there. Depends on what country you're in. But just go read. Like, I've read books on personal finance, and you'd probably know more than most people that work in a bank, honestly, because they just sell the products that their bank give you. So that is the most practical tip I could give someone. I think what people will find is that if you do delve into that world, it's not as complicated as the powers that be make it out to be. It's not as complicated and as scary as you think it might be.
Completely agree. And I think that's a very practical application you can do for any area of your life, right? Go off and learn from the greats, stand on the shoulders of the greats, learn from them, and you'll learn more than some experts out there. Okay, now let's dial into trading specific now, Courtney. I think you've shed some incredible insights on philosophy and life in general. But I would love to hear about your strategy creation approach, because we talked a little bit about this before. But I'd love to hear about your processes, routines on how you're going about creating a strategy now that's congruent with you. Because I know there would be a lot of people out there who are maybe a little bit earlier on in the journey, and you gave the advice of reading wide and learning wide. But I'd love to get insights into how you then use that library of information, or that buffet of information, like you mentioned, to take on board the bits and pieces that you love, that you would love to use and are congruent with you, and then go off and trade that successfully. So any sort of insights you have on strategy creation, and adapting as well, because there'll be certain points when the market adapts that you have to adapt as well. So how you go about creating a strategy and then adapting that strategy when necessary.
Of course, yeah. So I think the first step to creating a strategy, you have to know just the fundamental basics of what it means to trade the market. So, just real basics like risk management and understanding, are you going to be scalping? Are you going to be day trading? Are you going to be swing trading? Mm-hmm. Those are kind of like the basic things. And then I would really say, like I said, go and learn from someone. So you're kind of like in an apprenticeship phase for the first 1 or 2 years, gives you that foundation. And then I kind of, after that initial 2 years of being in the community, I left. And then I just went, I didn't hop from community to community, but I just went out there and sourced a lot more information than what I'd been exposed to. And I guess what that did is it helped me to realize that I knew very little about the actual market itself. Mm-hmm. I probably learned a lot more over the past 18 months than I did in the first 2 years, but the first 2 years was very, very formative. So I think you have to, what I do is I take things quarter by quarter. Mm-hmm. So introducing something new into my trading strategy, I will say, okay, for this quarter, this is going to be my focus. And that might be back testing a new strategy or a new element to my strategy. And I want to give myself enough time to do that, because trading takes time, right? We are trading time in the market, mm-hmm. whether that's on the daily chart, the 1 hour chart, or, the 15-minute chart. We are trading time. So you have to give yourself time to kind of assimilate the new information that you learn. And that's where I think patience comes in. So when I'm back testing something or testing something, doesn't necessarily have to be back testing. I definitely want to give myself enough time to get that data and discover if I'm comfortable with that and adding it into my strategy. And I think you have to be, there's a fine balance between following someone who knows more than you and just kind of just blindly following what they're saying this is the way to do it. Well, it's the way that works for them, right? So you almost have to have a bit of bravery to say, do you know what? I don't think that really works for me. I'm going to try something different, or I'm going to adapt what that person said to make it work for me. I don't think you can't be scared of doing that. There's a lot of people that are put on pedestals within the trading arena. And if you just copy what they're doing, then you're trying to trade the market through their eyes. And guess what? You have a different set of eyes. So you have to be brave enough to make mistakes. It's a massive thing when developing a strategy. The idea of making mistakes and failure is something that's a little bit taboo in all walks of life. In trading, you can't be that way. You've got to be like, okay, if it means taking 20 losses in a row to figure out that doesn't work, do it early. And yes, it can be a little bit painful sometimes, but it gets you to the point where it's like, okay, that doesn't work, or I'm not going to employ that into my strategy. Mm-hmm. So those are the kind of things that I do to rigorously develop my strategy as well. Yeah, I'm just not afraid to change things up. If I don't feel something's working or I'm not resonating with it, I will just go back to the drawing board, because I feel like I'm still early in my trading journey anyway. And I'm reading at the moment. I just finished the other day listening to Robert Greene Mastery, and he talks about these masters of their various fields, Leonardo da Vinci, Mozart, all these kind of people. And he's talking about it takes them years to become virtuosos in their field. So, it kind of makes me a lot more patient with my journey, understanding that it is made up of hours and hours of effort and experimentation and failures, and persistence, just to keep on going. So yeah, those things help me when developing a strategy.
Powerful stuff, Courtney. Now, let's talk about one of the bigger challenges, mindset challenges you face in your trading. Because I know anybody listening to this, including myself, we've been through mindset challenges, and we have what we initially perceive as failures or setbacks. But I'd love to hear potentially shedding some light on one of the bigger challenges you faced, and specifically how you went about dealing or overcoming this particular challenge to bounce back.
Okay, so I think the biggest challenge for me is confidence and trusting myself. Mm-hmm. So one of my mentors is a mutual friend of ours. He kind of told me I need to get out of my own way, and those words have they've plagued me in my trading journey, where I could probably trade to a higher standard if I was just able to kind of sometimes stop overthinking, stop second guessing myself. I think that's been my biggest challenge. It's definitely trading is 90% mental, right? It's 90% mental game. So to figure out once you get to a decent technical standard, the rest of it is just going to be figuring out how to execute your strategy as accurately and as efficiently as possible. So I think for me, it's being able to trust myself and not second guess myself. So at the moment, I'm working on to get over that, or in the past to get over that. And actually, at the moment, my focus, I talked about having a focus for each quarter. Mm-hmm. My focus is to improve my self-image within trading. I was just talking about this to Michael Bamboo is a good friend of mine. I know you've had him on the podcast. Mm-hmm. We talk working on the self-image, the fact that you can put in a lot of work on the technicals, you can put a lot of work in on the strategy, and there's a common misconception that if you can analyze and read the market very well, you'll be a good trader. And it's a misconception, because it's all about managing yourself, managing your emotions, and executing flawlessly. And I think that for me at the moment, if I was to pick a gap in where my immediate kind of need to work on myself, is the self-image to bring my self-image to a place where I believe I am as good a trader as my skill set on the charts demonstrates to me. Mm-hmm. Which is a completely mental thing. Like that's the mental game of it.
Great, man. And this sort of leads into my next question as well. We can either talk about this self-image challenge or a previous challenge that you've overcome. Well, you said that that's the goal for this quarter, right? You said that is the intention for the quarter, to improve your self-image. But we both know that nothing gets done unless there's, daily intentional action working towards improving that. So I'd love to hear, after you set that intention for the day, what do your routines, what do your processes look like on a daily basis to ensure every day you're progressing to improving either that self-image or another goal, or another goal you've set?
Yeah, good question. So I find that my days pretty much go smoothly when I have a good morning routine. which I've had for years now, and a good evening routine. Those act as bookends to my day. So whatever happens in between there, if I've got those two things, it's probably going to be a good day. It's going to be a productive day. Because I'm setting the intention from the beginning, and then I'm setting the intention at the end to go into the next day, carrying that intention forward. So I'll wake up 2 hours before kind of London session, which is it starts at 7 a.m. in UK. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'll sort of pray, give thanks for the day, and I will meditate before getting on the charts, which puts me in a really calm state. And then when I open the charts, it's very easy for me to kind of then look what's going on based on my current strategy and the way I read the market. I'll look at the market and kind of think what could possibly happen for that day. Once I've done that, then I'll sort of, fuel myself for the day, and then come back ready to trade. That's kind of I'd say the first 2 to 3 hours of my day. And I do that every day from Monday to Friday. And between, so let's say I'm working on self-image at the moment. And readings are going to be based on the mental game. So at the moment, I'm reading a book called Relentless. So this by Tim Grover, he trained Kobe Bryant and Jordan. So we're talking about some of the best athletes that have ever played, basketball. He's trained them. So those guys at the top of their field, he talks about the fact that it's their mentality that set them apart. So if I'm working on self-image and my mentality, I'm going to be reading stuff about the mental side of things. Another book that I've just recently read is With Winning in Mind, Lanny Basham, who was an Olympic gold medalist. He talks about improving your self-image through performing whatever arena you're in. So the middle of my day, yes, it involved trading, being at the charts, but there's times where I might not be active on the chart. So I'm going to be reading around my quarterly focus, or studying around my quarterly focus. Or if I have a chance to do sort of ASR things, I'm going to be breaking things down, and it's always leading me back to what my quarterly focus is at the time. So that's where my days, I guess the sandwich part, the filler part, is all about, okay, if my quarterly focus is this, what activities am I doing to bring me back to that? And then the end of the day, I'm going to sort of go back through the data of what's happened from kind of the beginning of the day to the end of the day, and see what I can make sense. Did I miss anything? Why did I miss it? What was going on in my mind to make me miss that trade? Or if I made a mistake, I took a trade that I shouldn't trade. Like, why did I do that? And I'm directing that back to the mental game, and I'm gonna kind of write about that in my journal. I think journaling is a massive thing as a trader. To be able to look back and see how you're growing, what mistakes you've made, how to learn from those things. And then I'm going to close the day by sort of, like I said, analysing and evaluating the day. And then I'll probably kind of read again around my chosen subject focus point. And I find that when I have that focus, it's very easy to operate on not quite autopilot, because I feel that's a little bit, sometimes you can be a bit lazy when you're operating on autopilot, but it allows me to operate with intention, like a very focused intention. And yes, I'm still trading, of course. Yes, I'm still doing the things that a trader would do, like ASR. So analysing my trades, making sure that I'm keeping good records and so on. But there is always that focus that brings me back. There's other stuff that I do, like I like to think of as marginal gains. So one thing that I did towards probably 18 months ago is I completely shut off social media and just changed kind of like the junk stuff on my phone for really good stuff. Like when I say good stuff, that sounds a little bit fluffy. So brain training apps. If trading for me is about the mental game, and I need to keep my brain sharp, then, if I go to the gym to train my body to keep in peak condition, then I want to be able to train my brain in certain ways to keep that in peak condition. Junk food for my brain would be scrolling on social media, mindlessly scrolling, watching what other people are doing. Now, something good for my brain would be learning a language. There's apps for that. Brain training to make your memory better, to make your focus better. So there's apps for that as well. So it's everything that I kind of do during the day is geared to make me mentally sharper and make me better at what I do. That's what athletes do. That's what those guys do who are at the top of their game. Everything is driven to make them better at tennis or golf or Formula One or football, whatever it is. And I'm like, well, hold on. If there's only like 1% of people who succeed at trading, then surely I need to treat my arena of competition the way that the best athletes treat their arena of competition, which means I invest in my mind a lot. Yeah.
Love that, dude. And we can't see your muscles in this video, Courtney, but I want everybody to know that you have very big muscles. Now, one thing I want to circle back to in that is the intentional focus, because there's this whole idea of deliberate practice, right? And it poses the question, why is someone who's driven a car for 40 years not a professional driver? And because a lot of the times they're just going through the motions day to day. They're going through the same thing. They're subconsciously driving their car on autopilot, and they're not doing intentional things to improve the weak spots in their game to become a better driver. But what you've posed there as I guess a solution or a process that you do is you have a very intentional focus for the quarter based on what you would love to improve. And every day you're working towards improving that. You've got the deliberate focus, you've got the intentional focus, and you're progressing every quarter towards a new target, a new goal. And I love that. I think that's such a powerful concept, the difference between deliberate practice, intentional practice, as opposed to just going through the motions. I think the audience would get a lot of value from that. So thanks for sharing. Cool. Now, my last little question here are around turning points. I think it's very easy for people to look at traders and really anybody at a high performing level and just think it's a linear path. But you and I both know that there are setbacks and there's bouncing points and there's progressions. You have to take, one step back to take two steps forward. So I'd love to hear a little bit about what the biggest turning points or turning point has been in your journey, and maybe share some thoughts on that, because I think that'll be valuable to the audience.
Yeah, of course. It's a really good question. So I say there's two major points in my trading career that stick out to me. The first one was when I joined a community. Joined the trading community. It was the best decision that I made at that time for my trading journey. So I started learning at the beginning, and it was all kind of self-taught, reading books, baby pips, which kind of every trader must have gone through baby pips at some time. And, a few light courses on Udemy and places like that, nothing serious. And then I realized, okay, I need someone to show me the ropes here, because this is not as easy as people like to make out. So in the trading community, and I was surrounded by like-minded people. That's where we met. That's where I met a lot of my trading friends and mentors. And I was there for 2 years. It was a safe place to learn. It was where I talked about doing an apprenticeship, where you do an apprenticeship and you're just learning the basics and immersing yourself in the world of trading. The second best decision that I made was leaving the community. And that is by no means a dig against the community. It is just, like I said, I was listening to Robert Greene, Mastery, and he talked about this natural process that someone who's trying to attain mastery goes through. And one of them is the apprentice. You are an apprentice and then you leave that phase. And whether you go into another phase of apprenticeship somewhere else, it is a natural part of the journey. And this again comes down to self-awareness. At that particular time, I just knew it was something that I needed to do. And it was the best decision that I made at that particular time, because just like in any other career, at some point, you kind of need to spread your wings, so to speak. Mm-hmm. That was those were the two major turning points. The first one was joining, the second one was leaving. But when I left the community, what happened is that I found that my mind started to work in very different ways. What I mean by that is it had to become a lot more independent. And I think if I've learned one thing from reading Market Wizards by Jack Schwager, is that all the best traders are independent thinkers. Like, they think for themselves. They might be, they might think differently from other people, which is a good thing. But they have their own thoughts. They're not afraid to kind of fail on their own and stand alone. And I was like, right, okay, well, if I'm looking up to these people who are the trailblazers within my chosen area of expertise, then I kind of want to look at what the commonalities are with these guys, whether they're from the 80s, the original Market Wizards, or whether they're the modern day Market Wizards. Those are you look for the common themes, and the common themes are they stand alone as independent thinkers. Mm-hmm. So for me to leave the community and do that has really helped my progression over the past, 14, 15 months or so, however long it's been.
It's a powerful answer. Thank you, Courtney. Now, thank you so much for coming on board, Courtney. You've shared an enormous amount of wisdom that I know the audience will get an enormous amount of value from. So on behalf of the audience, I just wanted to thank you. I'll be leaving some resources below for the audience to check out some of the things you've mentioned today and check you out as well. But are there any last words that you would love to leave with the audience before we wrap up today?
Yeah, I'd say that this is going to sound a little bit counterintuitive, but I'd say that, trading doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be for everyone. I'd say that if you can find a way to, fall in love with trading, you'll have a lot easier time. I'd also say that if you kind of seek the wisdom and seek the knowledge, the money will come, and you'll kind of, by default, you're going to fall in love with the process a lot easier than you would if you're kind of just seeking the quick wins and to be as profitable as soon as possible. Because we live in a world of instant gratification, so if you can switch off from that narrative of making money. Again, it sounds like a paradox because that's what trading is. I think you'll make a lot easier time of it when it comes to actually making some piece of progression within the game.
Mm-hmm. What a great way to end the interview. So thank you very much for coming on board, Courtney, and we'll be chatting very soon.
Thanks for having me, Pat. Take care.